Hey everybody, today we've got the best case scenario for the Dems in the 2026 Senate elections. We'll do the same for the Republicans in a future video. Today it's going to be the Dems. And as always, this is just the best reasonable case scenario. It's not going to be some historic landslide. And even though it's been 3 months since I last did this video, there's still a ton of time left. We've got a lot of questions about which candidates are actually running. That could be for both sides. Plus, we're not totally sure what the national environment is going to be. Although it's easy to think it should at least favor the Dems a little bit. It could be a lot more than that in the end. So there's not going to be a lot of changes. We'll update it, of course, in the future as things develop. Let's start with the safe states. These are expected to be over a 10-point margin or otherwise not competitive. We'll start with the Dems. Of course, in their best case scenario, they're going to get Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico. Then I've got Minnesota. This is an open seat, so theoretically it should be more competitive than usual. But Republicans don't have a super strong bench here. So I don't think it's going to be way over 10, but in this scenario, I do think it would hit double digits. After that, we've got the open seat in Illinois. Then on the East Coast, it's Virginia. Then headed north, we've got Delaware, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And the last state here also just eclipsing 10 points is New Hampshire. This is a tough call. Of course, it's borderline. It's likely to be Chris Pappas for the Dems. For the Republicans, we might be looking at Scott Brown. Now, Brown almost won when he ran last time. In some sense, he is a polarizing candidate, and I'm really not sure what he's capable of doing at this point. So we'll see if it's actually him. But in this blue wave scenario, I could see it just hitting 10. Now we'll do the safe states for the Republicans. Even in a blue wave, it's going to be safe in Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Alabama. If something crazy happens like John Bel Edwards gets in for the Dems in Louisiana, and maybe there's too much infighting between Bill Cassidy and John Fleming, then in theory it could get under 10, but for now it's going to stay safe. There's a couple of other fringe scenarios like Doug Jones in Alabama, Andy Beshear changing his mind in Kentucky, but for now those are just too unreasonable. Now we'll go down to the likely states. These are going to be between 5 and 10 point margins, or might be considered semi-competitive. For the Dems, I've only got one state, and that's going to be the open seat in Michigan. In my previous prediction, I had this still as a lean. Now I'm going to bump this up maybe about a half a point, and it's going to get into likely status. It's still only at about 5 up to 6 points. But if Dems have a solid night, even though it's an open seat and they've got some competition in their primary, I don't think a 6-point margin would be totally unreasonable. Now we'll do the likely states for the Republicans. Let's start with Montana. I'm going to assume it's Steve Daines running again, and there's not a whole lot to say here. It doesn't look like Jon Tester is running again, but if it got down to 9.5 or 8.5 points on a great night for the Dems, I don't think that's too unrealistic. So that's why we've got it at likely. Next, it's Nebraska. Now this is going to be a highly debatable rating. It looks to be Pete Ricketts for the Republicans against independent Dan Osborne, who's running again. Dems might not even field a candidate. They just might tacitly back Osborne. And Osborne did get it under 10 against Deb Fischer back in November. Ricketts is a very well-connected, wealthy candidate. He won extremely comfortably back in November. On paper, it seems like he would be a tougher candidate to beat than Fischer. But now Osborne is tested. He's ready to go. He might have a more favorable environment. But even so, this is a tough rating. His own internal polling has been much too friendly to his own cause. I think now Ricketts knows what Osborne is capable of. And even though he's a good candidate, I can still see Osborne losing by more than 10 points. But in this, I guess the fair rating would be to take it down to likely. South of there in Kansas. Here, I'm going to assume it's incumbent Roger Marshall for the GOP. If the Dems put up Laura Kelly, I would put this under 10 for sure. But federally, this is a more Republican-leaning state. But if the Dems have a good night, I don't think it's unreasonable to put this under 10, so it's going to go likely. Then we're going to go into the Southeast. It's South Carolina. This is the Lindsey Graham seat, and we're not positive it's even going to be him as the nominee, but it is going to be an uphill climb for the Dems. But the fair rating here, I think, is a likely rating. The last one is going to be Florida. Here's the special election held by Republican Ashley Moody. Dems might be putting up Josh Weil, who ran against Randy Fine in that U.S. House special election earlier in the year. He did pretty good, but the Senate is a different story. The state has just gotten so red, it's been easy to underestimate Republican support here. Some people think this seat is super safe no matter what. I wouldn't go that far, but in this, I'm going to say it's going to get down to mid-single digits. That's maybe a 5 to 6 point likely rating. Now we've got the most competitive states. We're going to go through these one at a time. Lean ratings are under 5%. Tilt are 1 point or less. First, let's take a look at Alaska. The assumption is it's It's Dan Sullivan running again for the Republicans. The Dems are kind of wide open. Their best candidate is probably going to be Mary Peltola, who might be making a run for governor or maybe again in the U.S. House. This is kind of a quirky state politically, but overall federally, it does have a red lean to it. So there is some range here in this state, but with all the time left, the rating for now is going to be a lean for Sullivan, the Republican. Next, it's Texas. A lot going on here with the Republican primary as well as the Dems. It does matter who the Republicans put up, but the Dems could end up having a more crowded field themselves. Colin Allred already ran and lost to Ted Cruz in November. There's also astronaut Terry Virts running. Allred already has the loss on his record, and the state was redder than a lot of people expected in the last presidential election. The trends are going to be interesting to watch, especially in South Texas. But for now, if the Dems have a good night, I'm going to say this could dip down under 5 points. I think it flipping would definitely be too unreasonable for now, but this is going to be a lean Republican rating. Let's stop off in Iowa. This is the Joni Ernst seat. Is she going to run again? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of Dems are bullish on Nathan Sage. There is some potential here for this state to go back toward the left. However, that's already after it having moved pretty far toward the right. So I think the rating here, if everything lined up right now for the Dems, it would be very close, but it's still going to be a tilt for the Republicans, but it is a debatable rating. Next, it's Ohio. This is another special election with John Husted as the incumbent. Dems are kind of bruised here. They know that this is a Trump-friendly state, so something could happen with a new candidate. Maybe Sherrod Brown even comes back in for another run, but I think he's more likely to run for governor. Either way, in this, I think it would get more competitive, but it's still going to stay leans for Husted, the Republican. Now let's do the northeast corner, Maine. This would be the Susan Collins seat. She's definitely polarizing. It looked like Dems were going to take her down in 2020. The polling totally underestimated her. She's got to get enough crossover vote, but the state does lean blue federally. So in this scenario, it's not too unreasonable to think that the Dems are going to flip this. Still waiting for the pieces to fall into place, but this is going to be a flip and a pickup, and it's going to go lean for the Dems. Down the coast into North Carolina. Here it's an open seat after Thom Tillis decided not to run. So a lot of question marks on the Republican side, and we've got a few on the Dems side as well. I think a lot of people are waiting on former Governor Roy Cooper to jump into this thing. If he does, I would guess Wiley Nickel might back out. It doesn't have to be Cooper for the Dems to win this. Republicans do tend to have success for this type of race, but the margins are competitive. So in this blue-leaning environment, with a lot of question marks, this is going to be another flip and another pickup. It's going to go lean for the Dems. The last state is Georgia. Here's one Democrats are defending. It's Jon Ossoff against somebody other than Brian Kemp for the Republicans. Again, I don't think it really matters. I think in this scenario, Dems are going to hold this seat. It's not going to be super convincing, but it is going to be by more than 1 or 2 points. So that means this is going to be a hold, and it's going to go leans for the Dems. So that's it. In this best case scenario for the Dems, they come out with 49 seats. Republicans still hold on to that majority with 51. Dems do get the 2 pickups in Maine and North Carolina, and they defend Georgia, and they hold on to the crucial open seat in Michigan. Now, I think they would also make it pretty competitive in Iowa. The other potential targets would be Alaska, Texas, or Ohio. But for now, I still think those would be out of reach. The other dark horse states would be the likely ratings: Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, South Carolina, or Florida. But for now, I think that would be fool's gold, even at a blue wave. Doesn't mean those states or even some of the safe ratings could not theoretically get more competitive once we find out more information. But for now, those are just off limits. This is an unfavorable map for the Dems, but they come out with 2 seats that would put them in position to try to recapture the majority in 2028. So that's what I've got for now. This is it for the Dems for their best case scenario. So let me know in the comments, within reason, how does your map look? Do you agree with most of these ratings? Do you have a couple of different takes? What do you put more or less weight on at this point? Let me know what you think down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.